Makeup off my face.
Alright. So, welcome to seasparkles Corner, and today I've come up with an interesting idea. An interesting discussion that we're going to do, and it has to do with this. So, here's what we're going to do, is we're going to figure out how much of a crew would you actually need to run a starship in like a 5-year mission. And we're going to base this off of a bit different. We're going to base it off of theoretical science that is available today, and not actually the technology from Star Trek. This basically means a realistic 5-year mission, okay? So, get a few things out of the way. I checked the internet, and according to approximation, what I've been able to find out, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier actually has a crew of 6,000. And the TOS original series Enterprise crew varied from episode to episode, but the most accepted one seems to be 430. So, here's what
That's what Captain James Kirk said he had on his Constitution class.
he actually gave, depending on the writers, was writing at the time, he gave different amounts.
And
one said like 300, one said like 400.
the D.
And it's just very wild. Okay, so what we're going to do is actually want to get to this is we're going to figure out the real size of crew needed.
Well, you got to decide, are they going to have replicators or not?
Well,
Replicated technology does not exist.
no, and it is being theoretically worked on. So
Yeah, but they haven't been able to even
We're
get
not-
tomato soup.
So we're not going. So they can't have replicators. Okay, this is realistic crew amount. Okay, and
Okay, does that mean
we're going to go.
do they have transporters, which doesn't work?
All right, so basically here's what we're going to do. We're going to go position by position and then discuss from technology. Now, 5-year mission, basically, we're going to start off with the basics. That would be accommodations. Well, guess what? You're not going to very well be able to have them all in like bunk beds in a wide open space, because then guess what? The crew will be doing those. They're going to have to actually have reasonably comfortable space. So when
Like they had on the D.
well, like they had like on the, say 171 at the bare minimum, like you basically have a little room or cubby hole like on a cruise ship.
Okay.
With like 2 beds and a bathroom.
What they had on the Constitution class was a bed and a sink in the rooms and pull-out dressers.
So then,
because
that would mean
everybody shared
inevitably,
showers.
that would mean inevitably you would need beds.
They had
okay?
a bed, they had dressers, and they had a sink in the room.
And a chair, a sink, let's say facts, a toilet.
They didn't have them in the individual rooms.
Well, I'm just saying the bare basic.
Remember that dolphin of Elas?
Well, we're not going based off of what we sent you, we're going based off of theory. Okay, we're theorizing on what a ship would have to have and the crew that would have to have to do a 5-year mission.
All right, what they do is they would have 2 crews, two-person share bunk bed like on the cruise ships.
Yeah.
And they would have 2 dressers, and they would have a shower and a toilet, and on the cruise ships for the crew, which I saw an episode on the Smithsonian, in the cruise ship and the cruise, they showed the bathroom. It was a toilet with a shower over top.
Yep, and a shower.
Everything. But the shower and the toilet you could literally sit on and have a shower.
Well, I'm calling that basically the bare minimum.
And the toilet had a sink also in it. So in the bedroom they had 2 beds and 2 dressers, and with the bathroom was compacted like a half bed.
I know, it's going to be a very compact room.
Well, that's what I'm telling you they have on the cruise ships.
I know.
So that's what they do on some of the military ships.
Yeah, I'm calling that basically bare minimum for basically comfort for a 5-year mission, basically, okay?
Yeah, but they would still put 2 people in there to share.
Well, yeah, because they can actually have them be different shifts. That way, as
and
well.
that way it saves on space in the company.
All right, so then basically that comes up with also, ironically, we're going to have to say 5 years worth of food.
Well, in the Enterprise, they went and picked up, because there was star bases everywhere.
Well, they weren't quite everywhere. They also picked up in Detroit as well. We're going to basically just say, because in truth,
we don't know of life anywhere but here.
That's right. So we have to,
and I
probably
see them being able to build a ship to go 5 years. We can't even go to Mars and back yet.
I know. Oh my God.
They couldn't. For them to have 5 years, they couldn't store 5 years worth of do. They would do it like Voyager. They would would have grow food. In Voyager, you know how in Voyager they grow food.
I know.
Because you can't. People have to have fruit and vegetables, and they can't store at least And it would be too heavy.
Well, for facts is one thing.
They have to do it like Voyager.
The food would spoil, so that would ironically require storage space for actually
They would have to have
garden.
an arboretum.
Exactly, an arboretum, because
And they'd have to somebody looking over it.
but you still will have to carry
And
5.
they need somebody like Neelix who could cook good.
When you got to the creator, just figure out what the ship has to have for it.
You'd have to have an arboretum.
Well, no, that's kind of a given, okay? But still, there's one thing we'll have to carry, and it's going to be, unfortunately, it'll be 5 years worth of replacement parts. That's something that Star Trek never covers. Because
Yeah,
even
because
Star Trek.
actually they covered it by saying that they did replacement parts via the replicator.
I know, but not everything could actually be replicated. We're saying this is realistic as in what could be done today. So that'd be 5 years,
They
5
couldn't
plus
be
years
gone
worth of.
5 years. They'd have to come back to space
Yeah.
dock for service.
I know.
That's a reality. They can't be gone 5 years.
Well, you could actually.
We don't build. You can't. Look at this.
You could build a ship in orbit.
In a space dock.
Exactly, you could build it in orbit. We're just doing this theoretically, okay? All right.
Theoretically, by the time they can do that, we'd probably have a spaceship dock on Mars, like where the Enterprise D was built out of Utonia Elysium.
This is just fun speculation. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
We're just doing fun
They would
speculation.
have to. They couldn't go 5 years. Okay, they would probably know what would be required for spaceship, so they'd probably have. They had space docks with all kinds of tools and equipment in it, so they did have that on the D.
And we're figuring out what the ship will have to have, and then the crew will have to handle it all.
One space dock would have to have replacement parts from floor to top.
You done ranting?
I wasn't
Or can you just
ranting.
say
I
this?
was going along with the
I know.
conversation. If you want me to say
I know,
I'll get up and leave.
I'm just saying is that because you're saying they can't do it, but then we ain't actually got to the fun part yet.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so that basically means there'll be parts, and then there'll have to be, and it'll have to have basically somebody to handle the furniture, right? To repair the furniture that will get on the ship.
The maintenance crew would do that. The one who would do the they'd have a maintenance crew like the
Considering,
Enterprise had.
just like cruise ships, they would have a crew of like 3 or 4 people just handling repairing the furniture because it would get damaged. So then that'd be basically a furniture repair people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that'd be basically a crew to repair furniture.
I'd be a maintenance crew. They probably have the maintenance crew do the cleaning too, just like on most ships.
Yeah, because the crew would actually probably.
I saw in the Smithsonian when they were talking about the Epic, they showed a whole crew there, and they said that crew does nothing but repair stuff because they expect stuff to break every cruise.
Mm-hmm.
And the cruise ships that do the maintenance work also double as decontaminators.
Well, yeah, because that's kind of good. Because anybody could clean and sterilize and decontaminate.
No, but they say they double as decontaminators in case somebody gets sick on the cruise ship. So because they would decontaminate the entire ship before they let the next one on.
Well, we're
So that way on the spaceship would be the same thing because they would have to decontaminate from bacteria. Being enclosed a ship for 5 years that you can't open up, you're down tooting that you're gonna get disease and sickness in there.
Yep. Okay.
That could spread through the whole cruise. Being closed up for 5 years would be very unhealthy.
Now, let's face facts. Transporters would basically be, in real life, and it actually says improvements would be, I actually said, yeah, I'm willing to do it, is it would actually be killing the person on the pad and then basically cloning them down. But that would be actually then requiring a receiving station down on the planet below, so that wouldn't work. So you can't use transporters, so then you
They
have to
use shuttles.
support crafts.
Shuttles
So
that can land on the air, because we have that ability now.
So basically, then that means you would need probably personnel that would handle the flight deck. That would basically be somebody who would handle giving the shuttle permission to land, overseeing the shuttle's storage, whether it be kit supplying.
They have that on every ship.
Making sure. So actually, a more reasonable, realistic support craft bay was actually shown on the original series, where they had multiple support crafts and crews just handling hooking them up.
They had tow ships and all
filling
that.
them, tow support crafts. So then that means basically for the flight deck, you would need a flight deck.
That was huge.
Yeah, you would need a flight deck CO. For 2 ships, you need actually 2 of them. Am I right?
And they cleared who could land and who could depart.
Yep. So you need 2 flight decks.
Also, the flight deck would tow ships.
Supervisors.
They also towed ships to their positions because the ships on V would land this way, and then they had these little things that would tow the ships and position them where they wanted them to be on the deck.
And then you would need a flight deck crew, which would basically handle hooking them up, fueling them, clearing them for other use, moving them around. So you need a flight deck crew.
And they cleaned and serviced all the ships.
So we
they told them
offer.
No, I'm gonna see you tomorrow.
Yep. All right. So then we've already actually proven.
We were talking about.
We've actually proven Star Trek.
The V showed how a space dock would actually work.
Yeah. So actually, we already disproved the shuttle bays on the Enterprise, so they didn't have a flight deck crew for the shuttle bay.
No, they had one person behind the thing that would open and close the door.
Actually, in the Next Generation and various other episodes, they just referenced the shuttle crew on the shuttlecraft would just open the door.
And the only thing that could land in there would be a shuttle.
Yeah.
And the rest of it they used for storage stuff.
Okay, so then realistic 5-year journey.
There was a teleporter in there too.
We also that's for support crafts. So that's already quite an increase on the crew there. Okay. So then now
on V they had a fully working space dock.
Yeah, fully working support craft hangar.
And they had a bunch of people that worked in it.
Okay. So then, all right, we've already got basically supplies, we've got the crew, we've got the support craft supervisor, we've got the flight decker. Well,
you have to have a fully working med bay.
That means, yep, that's medical now.
You have to do that.
It's going to be
and then they would have to store medications and
that
stuff
means
like
medical supplies.
Yeah, because on the Enterprise they could beam out organs and stuff like that and do all that and heal
Yeah, but guess what? You can't use
You can't do that. That doesn't really work.
Yeah, that means medical
Voyager
supplies.
was actually more accurate.
Plus years. Actually, I'm leaning towards saying that the representation for the motherships on V was actually more accurate.
Those things were humongous.
I know. It's looking like you're going to need something that big for a 5-year mission. Something that big. I mean, that's saying something. And then you're going to need a chief medical officer.
Oh, and you have to have a whole medical crew.
Yep.
That means that's nurses.
That means you're basically going to need almost a hospital worth of staff almost.
Yeah, because you would have to have, the doctor would have to have nurse assistants, and they have to have
assistant surgeons. So bare minimum it's got to be probably 6, maybe 10 medical officers.
And they have to have anesthesiologists and stuff like that. An average person, when they have a surgery like this, like 10 or 20 people in there taking care of one person.
Or even 20.
Not to mention the past, on Voyager, remember that one woman got pregnant, and so the doctor had to take care of that.
Yeah, I can say you're right, probably about 10 to 20
because you would have to have an incubator for a newborn. Yeah. You'd have to have special. What if the child is a preemie or malfunction or something?
We ain't even got a specialist if you're an exploration ship yet, and we're already at least, let's see, 2.
I'm simply saying,
7, 8 flight deck people.
On V the series.
And probably 20 medical officers.
On V the series, they had a room there because of going along the way, because being away from the sun. This is what they covered up V the series. They said being away from the sun causes the person to lose vitamin D in the body and the skin and cause bad bones. So in V the series, hold on, let me finish. Yeah. In V the series, they had a room where the people wore these sunglasses over their eyes and they sat there. Every person had to sit there and sun themselves to keep themselves healthy. To replenish, the sun gives your body natural things you need to stay healthy. And you can't be gone 5 years and not be that because you would have bone loss.
Yeah, we haven't got to the specialty rooms, which now that's a good segue into. Let's go into the specialty rooms. Okay, so you're right. You'll need somehow to simulate artificial sunlight.
They did that on Voyager, but we have the ability to do that now. It's called fog lamps.
Yeah, artificial sunlight.
Because your body requires it for survival.
Which you could actually do it by either lighting in the general corridors or a room dedicated to it.
They had a room dedicated that replenished the special things the sun gets.
Now, you have to face facts.
Because regular lighting like this won't get
artificial gravity would not actually simulate everything that normal gravity does. You would actually need special physical fitness equipment.
Babylon 5 does it by rotating gravity.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's artificial gravity. It's not actual Earth gravity. You actually still need physical fitness equipment. Because even if you're walking around on a ship or you're slacking off, you still need to basically exercise to maintain your strength. Just like people on Earth don't do enough today. So you'll need a gym.
Yeah. Well, a small gym. We don't need a large gym because everybody can share it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you only have to go a couple times, a few times a week.
Yeah, and then you'll also need you'll need a break room.
Yeah, because every Star Trek, and Deep Space Nine, MV has a break room, a relaxing
Yep.
chamber.
And then
And I hate to say that, you would also have to have a spa room.
yeah, a spa. Yeah.
Because what if somebody injures their back or throws out their back or something, and they need that, you know?
Well, that means you're going
With a spa room with a chiropractor working in
Yeah,
there.
we'll have to face that.
In case
That means
somebody throws out
that's
their
adding
back.
that's adding a chiropractor,
Would be in the spa room.
chiropractor, and a physical fitness expert to run the gym.
Because you'd have to have a sauna on there, because a sauna that I know we don't use it because we take vitamin C and stuff like that, but if you're working on a ship, to prevent contamination to the whole ship, a sauna can sweat out a cold.
And you got to face facts. You'll need you're right. You're going to need a decontamination chamber. This is really, we're really scaling this ship up.
And you'd have to have a research lab, because what if they go somewhere and come up with a disease or an illness or something unexpected or new because they're exploring new planets?
Yep.
The risk of cross-contamination.
Science labs is going to be in must, like a mineralogy lab.
You won't need a mineralogy lab, but you will need astrometrics.
Astrometrics for running your star charts. You'll need. Well, the reason you need a mineralogy lab is to actually analyze ores and minerals you bring back to the ship for analysis. Basically, break it up and like run it through a device to analyze what's in it. Which also have probably part of it would be something to analyze air samples as well. I mean, basically, just in general, you're going to need at least 3 labs. Space facts.
And you're gonna have to.
And then you're going to need staff to run them.
You're also gonna have to have a thing that.
Probably bare minimum, you need 6 people to probably
A
run 3
person that
labs.
can build weapons and probes and things like that on the ship.
Yeah. And then you're going to need 6 lab staff, bare minimum for all run those labs. And then you're going to need an armory, like you said.
Because they're gonna run into situations where they're sending off probes. They can probably only store like a few, so that means you'd have to build more probes.
Yeah, armory and a workshop.
Yep.
And then you're probably going to need 4 people to run it.
And you're gonna have to have you're gonna have to have a fully stocked crew to manage a kitchen, because one person isn't gonna be able to cook for that many people and take care of them.
And then
A healthy diet.
And then for the workshop and the labs, you're going to need, guess what? Since it's a 5-year mission, that's going to be 5 years worth of supplies for them. This is getting crazy. Actually, I wanted to say that this is crazy. And then you're right, a kitchen and a mess hall.
And a fully stocked one. And you're gonna have an entire crew to manage that. At least 10 people. Because
Actually, I wanted to say because the size
look
of
at how much work you and I do just for us in that kitchen.
I think it's going to.
Imagine it if there's like 1,000 people on that ship.
We didn't even got to actually just general personnel and other things.
I'm simply saying a crew needs to go on their stomach.
We'll come
People
back.
can't survive
We'll
without
come back
food
to
and
the
water.
kitchen and mess hall after we figure out the
You're
rest
gonna
of the
have
crew.
to have, not only that, you're gonna have a water recycling plant on that.
Yep. Water recycle bins, you're right.
You're gonna have to, because you
And
cannot
water
store
tanks.
5 years worth of water would become contaminated.
Yep. That's one
So
problem.
you're gonna have to have the entire, like they have on cruise ships, they're gonna have to have it on there.
Yep. So our cruise ships
So
takes it
that
from the
means
ocean water and
human body
purified.
waste will have to be recycled into
Everything-
drinkable water.
The water that will be stored in will have to be decontaminated and recycled and then sent out, which would be actually storing chemicals to run the decontamination system, ironically.
Gonna have to do that to make it drinkable water.
Okay, and
And
then
because the water that people shower in, because that's the only way people are gonna have to shower, that water they shower in is gonna have to go back into recycled to
Yep.
be used.
and then actually there's one other problem too is what the ship will have will be ironically.
It's impossible to
It's going to
have a ship
work.
for 5 years. It's impossible.
It's going to have a post office.
There's not gonna be no way unless they go back to handle all the letters. Each person's gonna have to handle it, and when they get back to Earth, they're gonna
Well,
take it that
the
way.
key reason why a post office will be essential is to actually deliver letters from, like, let's say, to the captain down to the mess hall, and then also stuff and deliver paperwork.
They have that on ships now, but it's not called the post office. It's called the lower class. It's called the captain's assistant. They do all that.
Actually, the newest class aircraft carrier does have a post office.
Well, that's because they'll stop by the post office and mail it, but they only need a post office if you can, and they can't do that if they're going to be away for 5 years. There's going to be no way for.
Well, just basically in general, you're going to need people to actually be delivering letters and notes between crews.
That's
and
what that
blueprints.
people have assistants for.
Yep.
Or they do it themselves. The captain has assistants, and they tell that lackey, you do that, you do that. The privates and things like that do that.
That would be, I guess we call it enlisted crew. And then,
Yeah.
and then rocking for a 5-year journey, and given being 5 years off in space, you're actually going to need, ironically, police,
You're gonna have-
on-board police or security, depending on what you want to call it.
Oh, every ship has
Yeah, so
security
that would-
officers. They're called security officers.
Yeah.
In the military, they have them all over there. Not only that, I hate to say this,
Mm-hmm.
and I hate to say this is a dirty word, I know, but you're gonna have to have a dental office.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to have supplies to handle cavities and stuff
Yeah.
like that. For 5 years, people can't go without proper dental care. So they're gonna have to fully recruit dentals and assistants, and then people are gonna have to make appointments with them on the ship and stuff like that. That's gonna be required for health.
Yep. We're actually in stuff that even.
And they're gonna have to have
Yeah, no stuff
all the
advertising.
supplies a dentist is gonna be needing for that to handle cavities and stuff like that.
Well, the good thing about it is the
equipment
dentist
and
would
chairs.
end up being actually probably a pretty small staff, probably only about 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, but they're gonna have to. They're still gonna have to have it because people will get cavities.
And then once you actually hit to actually realizing how big the screw's going to be, we'll then be able to figure out how big security would have to be and the rest. Okay, well, let's jump to the fun part. Let's hit the bridge. Let's see what kind of bridge stuff actually means. Because you, unlike Star Trek representing always the same bridge crew every episode, that's actually incorrect. Because we would have to
Actually, you're wrong. They didn't show that.
Only the Next Generation actually had
The
the bridge cycle.
Next Generation had it because Data didn't have to sleep.
And that
he
was-
was in command of the night shift.
And that was only at the end of the episode. That was ever actually used in the actual episode
Picard
on
was
its own.
12 hours in the daytime, and Data was in charge of 12 hours at night.
All right, so you would have to have, of course, the ship's captain.
And the first officer.
Yep.
And they'd have to have somebody to drive the ship, the navigation.
That would be navigation, which you would actually need 2.
Well, they had the
Actually,
Enterprise.
legit
You only
ships.
need one.
Legit ships actually don't. You'd actually could not have the. Legit ships actually has the navigator on shorter ships than the rest because to keep it refreshed in order to keep spot outs and not end up getting glassy ice. So I'd say you'd actually need 3 navigators. You would want the navigation post always manned. So
Yeah,
you'd expect-
and they give each other breaks.
So at least I'd say 3 navigators.
And you have to have a communication officer, but I don't know what. You don't even need a communication officer.
Not even
because it's going to be
today.
gone away for 5 years.
Not even today, because that station could actually
The first.
be melded in with operations, which would handle monitoring ship status and other such things.
On the cruise ships.
Which you would only need one
Do
operations
you remember
officer,
when we
really.
went on the cruise ship on?
The captain actually handled the phone.
Do you remember when we were on the Norwegian Sea?
Yeah.
And we went up to. They said that you could come and tour the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how small that bridge was?
Yeah, and only crew about 3 on the bridge at a time.
And no, there was only 5. There was 5 on there, and he said that was all that was needed because the one person that navigated, one navigator was doing everything under the water, and the other navigator was doing everything in the air. As they were watching these 2 ships,
Yeah.
and they told the captain had the wheel and where to turn. See, like on the Enterprise, the captain doesn't do nothing but sit there and give orders, but that's not the
Yep.
way it would really be. And the captain would turn to where they were supposed to want to go. And then they had one person that did communications between them and there because
And all personnel on the ship.
And then the other 2 people on the back all they did was the communication officer talked to other people in different parts of the ship.
Yeah.
And then they had one person, but they didn't have any weapons. And then they had that one person that just did the first officer just did everything the captain told them to do. But the captain didn't sit there and look pretty like on the Enterprise. Everybody actually did something.
Yeah.
And the first officer gave announcements for the captain.
Yeah.
That was what he did, and he did everything else the captain was doing. He was like a flunky on the ship. But you see, they would have to have them plus a couple of weapons people.
Yeah. Well,
And that's what they would really need. The captain wouldn't just sit there in a chair looking pretty like on a TV show.
Well,
They would have, nobody's gonna pay him to do nothing.
yeah, the legit ship would actually have the navigators basically be handling charts and overseeing the surrounding around the ship. Well, the captain basically handles the big navigation and the decision makings.
Yeah, but I was gonna be telling you, since we actually saw a really functioning bridge.
Yeah, so we're going to be comparing both, okay? So then basically then they
Even
would,
though it was a cruise ship, it would be just about the same in space.
yeah, and then,
Instead of monitoring underwater and above, they'd be monitoring for asteroids and stuff like
that's
that.
what the actual navigator would be actually doing on the bridge. That's why you would actually be cycling in that position probably 3 times. So that way nobody gets makes a mistake. They would probably want somebody who would
Well, you remember what the captain said? They said they have one employee who was trained at everything. He's what's called a floater on the Norwegian Sea.
Yeah.
And he said that person goes around giving 10-minute breaks to everybody so nobody gets tired and blurry-eyed. They don't work constantly. They hop around taking breaks.
Yeah.
That's all that person does. But that's a specially trained person he called a floater.
Yeah.
So that means that ship would have to have that too.
Yep. And then let's see.
That way the cruise ship wouldn't get into an accident.
That would be the captain, the first officer, and then you have navigation position. You would basically have somebody that would coordinate operations on board the
Do you
ship.
remember on the Norwegian Sea, the captain said there was a day captain and a night captain. Yep. There was 2 captains on that ship, which is kind of weird.
Yep.
On the Enterprise and on Star Trek, they had one captain that did all the time, but they said in reality, so that
Couldn't
way
do that.
they have a day captain and that works in the day, and then they have a night captain that sleeps at the day, and the day captain sleeps at the night.
Yeah.
Only on Star Trek they had one captain that made all the decisions all the time.
Well, let's face facts. Basically, in the end, the ship's crew would probably end up being probably about.
They would have to have 2 complete crews, one for day and one for night.
Yep. I'd say probably conservatively, easily, we'd probably be looking at least probably. I mean, if you had flight deck capability, you'd be jacking up. I mean, I'd say comfortably at least the ship would have to be at the bare minimum at least 500 to 1,000 people, easy.
Well, on
Just off the top of my head.
On V, they said that there was 1,200 people that worked on the V ships that did everything.
That actually makes sense. 1,200 crew.
And they said they also had extra rooms available in that big ship in case they had to relocate anybody from it or do anything. They're as they put it, move colonists for their leader, because their leader apparently colonized some planets as they went around. But that's just for the show. They said they had extra.
I could actually buy it. That does sound like a legit amount just for a 5-year operation. I can see it being 1,100 people easy. So you would need backups for all positions in the event anybody has a horrible accident on a shuttlecraft or on a planet.
But on V, they didn't. They had the captains that ran it but then they had an admiral that overseen everybody in they handled all the personnel.
The entire fleet.
Hey, can you bring me down to circular saw, please?
Never cross the street. Okay, so yeah, I could see it being 1,500 people easy. Or even 2,000. And if you add actual proper flight deck with fighters and stuff, being 6,000 easy. So actually V and Sci-Fi's bad habit of apparently grossly underestimating the crew for a ship.
And not only that, they said on V they had some rooms that were called recreational rooms.
Yeah.
Where the crews will go on their breaks and have fun.
I mean, I can see that. Okay, basically staying for all honesty, I can see the V motherships and the original V series being a good baseline. But I'm going to say the actual crew quarters and recreational rooms will be a lot less because there will be a lot more storage on board that ship to handle water. V's mothership is actually very realistic.
They said that happened so big, and they said they showed people just moving supplies from one area to the other. It was all some of the people did on V. They showed it because when Diana was walking and talking to somebody, they showed people using a 2-wheeler with boxes. They said, "Oh, that's just our crew." That all they did was go around and take stuff where it was needed, and they were in charge of the supplies on the ship.
You're right. I didn't even think of that.
They had a whole bunch of people And because she even said they had 200 people that do nothing but that all the time because they have to keep all the areas supplied everywhere and they know where everything is on the ship.
I didn't even think of that, but still, 1,000 to 1,500 people is a very reasonable mark, I'd say.
You would have to, and you think about it, you're right. These ships, I mean, the Enterprise ships are way too small for what we do.
And the crews are way
because
too small.
They said they had the idea that replicators did everything.
Yeah.
We don't have replicators. But in V, they didn't have replicators. They actually transported, they showed it in V where they grew turtles and fish and stuff like that for the people to eat. They actually had sunrooms with tanks, with people that took care of, growing and breeding fish for them to eat and stuff like that. So that way the crews wouldn't starve.
Yep. Now, unfortunately, this also sets a very interesting benchmark because the only other sci-fi series that's mainstream enough that actually say that, yeah, that's comparable.
I mean, Babylon 5.
Actually, ironically, Star Wars. Despite the fact,
Babylon 5 was over 5 miles long.
I know, but I'm just saying Star Wars ships are ginormous.
Oh yeah, they had that big.
Yeah,
huge-
the Imperial Star Destroyers.
Yeah. They carry a whole community in there.
Big ships are unfortunately necessary if you want to do long-term space flights. Apparently, after our little discussion.
And you got to think of that one, and you would have to have rooms where there would be recreational vehicles
Recreational
or people.
vehicles, TIE fighters, replacement parts for TIE fighters, food.
They would have to have some sort
water.
of fun to do, or at
The
least
original-
human beings would go insane.
The original version of Star Wars, they showed basically reflected a very small crew to be involved in the chase of the rebels on board the ISD. It was a lot more realistic apparently than even I thought. When you actually add in all this stuff that we just say here.
Star Trek is totally unrealistic.
Yeah, Star Trek ships and the crew that they showed is very unrealistic. In truth, more
They
realistic.
totally rely on replicators to do everything.
And also one,
But what about
two,
Deep
or
Space
three or
Nine?
four.
Well, what about Deep Space Nine? Those replicators were always messing up.
Yeah.
And if the replicators messed up on one of those
The
ships,
only reason
they would starve to
the only
death.
reason Deep Space Nine was okay is on account it was orbiting in a planet that could actually have food and supplies that could be shuttled. Runabout it up. Since Babylon 5 never showed to have anything other than runabouts.
Runabouts were on Star Trek, not on Babylon 5.
That means Deep
Babylon
Space
5
Nine. Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine had the runabouts.
The only reason
Babylon 5 had full ships everywhere. They had space
the
docks.
only reason Deep Space Nine was even okay with the replicational function is that it was in orbit of Bajor, and they could
And
just
they just
run
went
about
down.
supplies up when they were down.
Well, Miles
and
O'Brien
then
tried to
Quark
fix it.
had supplies in Deep Space Nine had cargo based by the fact that I don't even want to get into the scaling on that. But yeah, Star Trek ship size, even with replicators, horribly inaccurate.
Right.
But
Because they had a lot of small, teeny-weeny ships.
But Babylon 5, okay, so as I bring up Babylon 5, I'm gonna bring up Babylon 5, okay? So
They got supplies from Earth.
they got supplies from Earth.
They had space docks.
Yeah, they showed the station all the time returning supplies. So in a way, I guess,
They didn't have to store a lot because they would bring it in weekly.
yeah, bringing in weekly cargo vessels, and they showed the cargo ships, so they have basically like 3 people in an enormous ship with like 3 or 4 people
No,
on
they
it
had-
that would release the clamps, and then the cargo pod would go over to Babylon
Remember
5,
they
be
had-
unloaded, and then
They had 700 people who took care of those docks, and they
Yep.
said they were undermanned and underpaid. And they went on strike, remember?
I have to admit, sitting here doing this, actually thinking about what would be needed to actually operate a ship in general, I have to admit, I got a new respect for V. And I have a new respect for the representation that Babylon 5 did. Babylon 5 is, in my opinion, the closest realistic series to how things would end up being run probably if we actually did end up colonizing space. And also, I got a new respect for the size of the Star Wars ships. And the fact that those huge ships, and they only list like a crew of hundreds, because for a crew of a few hundred to 1,000, you're basically looking at a ton of extra space for everything.
Yeah, because you think about it, in Star Trek, they had a room smaller than this, and then they would go into a holodeck, and all of a sudden it'd be humongous, which is totally impossible. And they had all these fake human people on there, so they all could go and play pool.
I don't even want to bring up the holodeck.
So,
Spencer.
you know,
no, that is not possible.
It is impossible, but at least on Deep Space Nine, they had a big shopping center where people could go to relax, and they had private individuals. Who ran restaurants and stuff like that, who brought in live food. Deep Space Nine was a little bit more realistic.
The only thing that actually bugged me about Babylon 5 was actually the White Star ships. That's the only thing that actually bugged me about Babylon 5, because those are actually too small for how they were using
Remember
them.
that was used by Minbari Power thing though.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's still.
But they were still pretty big.
Yeah, but for the size that they attempt to reflect them as in comparison to other ships, they are actually too small. We actually sat down, we worked out everything that would be needed for a launch transistor. But the thing is that the White Star ships were always mostly kept near stations, though. So maybe, I don't know. But still, if they actually were required to actually keep a ship in order and the cargo in order, still they're too small. When you actually sat down
Well, the
and we
difference
worked all this
was
out.
on Babylon 5 and all those ships, nobody had their own quarters. They had everybody, the crew, sleep in one big room, and they all had to share one bathroom.
Well, the only thing that we can actually probably say about this is that the only reason that we kept seeing the same people all the time and all these type of stuff is studio budgets. Which is
Yeah.
a joke for what is apparently needed for a sci-fi. And the only reason Vio was able to actually get away with it is that they mostly had the ships hovering over the city all the time.
Yeah, and
And they
They
didn't
had a
really
lot
show the control room on the mothership really
Yes,
hardly
they
at all.
did.
No, I mean, with it fully manned. Multiple
Oh,
times
wow.
within the series.
Right.
It was mostly kept off camera.
well, they just showed a lot of people in the background walking
I
around.
know.
And they talked about all the people that did the different jobs.
They did very clever, basically Hollywood-like workmanship. So I'd say we've come up with a very new way to look at
So,
it.
I mean, we might as well say that that said there was 1,200 people that manned.
That's pretty legit now when you
and
actually
that's
sat down and worked it out.
legitimate. And when they showed people that moved the cargo on the ship.
And Babylon 5 has numerous strikes and guilds and humongous amounts of people
Oh
on
yeah.
the station.
They
At first I was
had
like, wow, that's a lot of people. When I first started, like, that's just.
They had a transportation guild.
Yeah.
They had each job had a whole guild of people.
Babylon
that
5's
did
huge amount of people and V
That worked all three of the
series huge
ships.
number that they quoted. That's very legit. And all the times in the Star Trek where they said like cruise in the hundreds marks, that's a joke. That ain't gonna cut it, apparently.
I mean, even on Babylon 5 with all the people that did the guild, they all complained about being overworked. And like they said, you try to run a loader for 12 hours to do a repair
Yep.
and see how your bones work and all that. So you can see it's very realistic.
Yeah. Well, I think we got it. We got this one figured out.
That'd be a huge payroll.
We didn't even talk about that, and we're not even going to try to touch
You have
it.
to have a payroll office and handle all that.
Accounting department. Let's face
Yeah.
facts. You need an accounting department to handle 1,000 people. You need at least, what, 7 people? 12 maybe?
It had to be just like V. They had 10 people that did it.
Yup.
When they were showing humans around there.
I have to admit, that would have been a very interesting person to sit in the room figuring out the crew that would be required for the visitor motherships on V, where they basically sat down and worked out the amounts for all the departments. and
Somebody
people.
did, the writing.
Somebody did, and somebody really did
They
their
did
homework.
really good writing.
Somebody really did their homework or worked on aircraft carrier.
Well, they knew what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing, that's for sure.
When they were showing around the presence of Earth and all that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I call this done.
But you haven't even